We're all going to be glued to those election results, right? Dying to know who's going to be president. But what if I told you some states are practically begging for delays? And I'm not talking about anything shady. It's just, well, how they're set up. We're talking potentially days of waiting to find out who won. So today we're diving deep into why knowing how votes are counted matters more than you might think. And to break it all down, we've got our expert here, ready to shed some light on these electoral quirks.
It's less about the technology and more about the rules in play. Imagine, right, a marathon where half the runners, they got to start without A&Y warm-up. That's essentially what's happening in states like Pennsylvania, Wisconsin. Our CNN article pointed this out. They can't even begin processing mail-in ballots before Election Day itself, unlike most other states.
So let's unpack this whole pregame issue, because it does seem strange, right? Some states can get a head start, others are lagging behind.
It all boils down to efficiency. Seeds that allow early processing, they can verify voter info, open envelopes, flatten ballots, it's a whole thing. Meanwhile, other states are stuck at the starting line waiting for Election Day.
So they're already chopping veggies while others haven't even turned on the oven yet, to use an analogy.
Exactly. And those mail-in ballots, they really add up. Remember 2020, how long Pennsylvania took to declare a winner?
4 long days. And it wasn't just the nail-biting wait, it had real consequences. All that speculation, the misinformation online, we all saw it, really drives home why understanding these delays is so crucial.
Yeah.
So are we in for another 2020, glued to our screens for days, stress-eating all the leftover election night snacks? Or are there signs things might be a little smoother this time around?
Well, there are a few glimmers of hope. The CNN article mentioned mail-in voting. It's expected to be a bit lower this time. And even, get this, the GOP is encouraging their base to vote early.
Fewer ballots to process, more people hitting those polls early. Okay, that does sound cautiously optimistic.
Right, however,
Yeah.
there's a catch. The article also highlights how, Trump's continued claims about mail-in voting being, prone to fraud. It could backfire.
You mean, even if some Republicans were thinking, hey, early voting, they might hesitate because of those claims, end up creating the delays they were trying to avoid.
Bingo. They might opt for in-person voting on Election Day instead, and then you're talking potentially longer lines, slower counts. It's a, self-fulfilling prophecy kind of deal.
And what about those new faster counting machines Pennsylvania invested in? Those don't just magically solve everything, do they?
They're a step in the right direction, definitely. But the funding came with you could say, a condition. Counties can only use those high-speed machines if they promise to count continuously. No more pausing, no more breaks.
So election officials are going to be pulling all-nighters, fueled by coffee and the pressure of the whole country watching. But hey, at least they're powering through those ballots, right?
Precisely. It might not give us those instant results on election night, but it could mean a smoother, faster process overall. And, accuracy is way more important than speed when it comes to something like this.
Speaking of the bigger picture, it's not just Pennsylvania and Wisconsin we got to keep our eyes on, right?
Mm-hmm.
Seems like almost every state has its own, electoral quirks that could throw a wrench in how quickly we get results. It's like some states prepped all their ingredients beforehand, while others are still rummaging through the pantry on baking day, hoping they have enough flour.
Perfect analogy. Georgia, for example. They've embraced early processing, which is great efficiency-wise. But they've also added this new hand count rule, which, well, that could slow things down.
So they're speeding things up and slamming on the brakes at the same time. Sounds like a recipe for, confusion, to say the least.
Exactly. And remember how much attention Georgia got back in 2020. It became a real focal point for those election challenges. This hand count rule, even if it's well-intentioned, could, unintentionally fan those flames again.
And what about North Carolina? Another big one, right, in terms of swing states? Anything they're doing that could affect how quickly those votes are counted?
Yeah, North Carolina's got a couple of things happening. First, they've implemented this new voter ID law, which will likely lead to, more provisional ballots being used.
Provisional ballots. Those are the ones that need that extra layer of verification,
Yeah.
right? Like making sure the voter's actually eligible and all that.
Exactly. Think of it like, you've already cast your vote, and then they ask you to dig out your ID from the bottom of your bag. Slows things down for everyone.
Right. Okay, so that's one thing. What's the other curveball North Carolina's throwing into the mix?
They can't actually report any early votes until the polls close on Election Day, like a chef withholding the appetizers until the main course is plated.
Definitely sounds like it's going to be a long night. We're seeing a theme here, all these states competing for the most likely to induce election night anxiety award.
And the winner of that, shall we say, dubious honor just might be Arizona.
Arizona? What's going on out in the Grand Canyon State?
Well, Arizona, they love mail-in voting. The majority of voters there use it. But here's the thing. A huge chunk of those ballots, they tend to get returned, get this, on Election Day itself.
So instead of like a steady stream of mail-in ballots, they're getting hit with this tidal wave right on Election Day.
Precisely. And that creates what's known as, get this, a blue mirage.
A blue mirage. Sounds more like something you'd find out in the desert than, in an election.
In a way, it is. Early results might show one candidate with a big lead, but then as those Election Day drop-off ballots get counted, the numbers can totally shift. It's like those mirages you see in the desert, but instead of water, it's votes appearing out of thin air.
And we're not talking about a small number of ballots here, are we? This is...
Not even close. Maricopa County, the most populous county in Arizona, they're expecting, get this, up to 500,000 ballots dropped off on Election Day.
500,000. Yeah, talk about a late surge in the vote count. Anything else Arizona's doing to keep things interesting, shall we say?
Oh, just a small detail. Their ballot this year, it's a beast. Double-sided, packed with candidates, initiatives, the whole shebang. It's going to take a while to tally all those up.
So longer ballots, a massive influx of mail-in votes on Election Day itself. Arizona's really going all out this year, huh?
Mm-hmm.
But ultimately, as you've said, it just highlights why it's crucial for us to be informed voters and patient ones at that.
Couldn't agree more. Understanding the processes involved, the potential for delays, it all helps us, wade through the information and the misinformation that inevitably pops up on election night.
So what does this all mean for you, dear listener, as you're sitting there glued to the election results?
Embrace the uncertainty. Election night, it's going to be a roller coaster. Ups and downs, twists and turns, and that's okay. Delays don't automatically equal fraud. They often just reflect the complexities of making sure every single vote is counted accurately.
So step away from the refresh button, put down those election night snacks, and take a deep breath. We've said it before, but it bears repeating. It's a marathon, not a sprint.
Exactly. Be mindful of your sources, be patient, and trust the process. We've been through this before, and we'll get through it again.
We hope this deep dive has, equipped you with the knowledge to navigate all the twists and turns of election night and the days that follow. But before we go, we'll leave you with this. What if, instead of getting caught up in the need for instant gratification for those immediate results, we took a moment to appreciate the fact that in a democracy, every single vote truly does count, even if those votes sometimes take a little longer to be heard. That's something to think about as we all wait for the outcome of this incredibly important election.